engaged and paying attention, we have several contested races this year, and the candidates for those contested races are up front. We know you want to hear from them and hear what their vision for service to the community is, but we want to acknowledge the candidates who are in uncontested races but took time from a very busy schedule to be here. So I'll ask them to stand and wave. Mayor Joe Talmer is here this evening. Councilman Michael Conderas, Councilman Charlie Smith, Councilman Jerry Frush, and Councilperson Diane Quantz are all here this evening. Let's give them a round of applause for taking time. Councilman Gross, Jeff Gross could not be here this evening, but he did send his regards and apologies for not being able to make it. As I said, we have contested races. We have not only will there be a primary challenge for the 2 open at-large seats for City Council, there will be also a race in the fall, as we have both Republicans and Democrats in the race this year. So keep paying attention when the fall comes forward. We'll have an interesting race as we move forward. Our people that are here this evening are from the Democrat Party, David Baumgartner, candidate for Council at Large. Thank you. All do deserve that. Republican Party is represented by Patrick Loebs, Connie Fribley, Jürgen Voss, Jack Wilhite, Cindy Dobbins, and Justin Reisner. And we also have a clerk-treasurer's race, Larry Ladd, and incumbent Lynn Christianson. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our moderator. Gary Gerard does a fabulous job at this. He'll walk through the rules for the candidates this evening, and we look forward to a great night. Please keep those applause going. Anybody who steps in the political arena with a willingness to serve, I think, deserves the respect and admiration for being here. So I thank you all for being here. Gary, it is yours. I stole his cheat sheet. Makes it tough on a guy.
Can't remember all those questions. Thank you all for coming tonight. I'm glad to see this many of you here. I wish there were a lot more of you here. I think the more people that take part in the political process, the better off we are. The way this is going to work, I'm going to give each candidate a couple of minutes to tell a little bit about themselves, and then we're going to start questions. I randomly selected the order so that each of the first 4 candidates will have a chance to answer question first. And the clerk treasurer were also randomly selected who would go first. So with that, we'll start out. And first on the council race is Dave Baumgartner. He's a Democrat, and he's going to tell you a little bit about himself.
Thanks, Gary. My name is Dave Baumgartner. I have been a public school teacher for 36 years here, and overall 29 of those years were here in the Warsaw Community School System. During that time, I spent a lot of time working in different committees, working on curriculum, working on student behavior, working on classroom activities. My classroom jobs included U.S. history and government, and I also started the radio and TV program at Warsaw Community High School, which is still in existence today, and we work in cooperation with WIOE on a number of different things where the kids are actually involved in broadcasting and producing commercials and things of that nature. I also was a coach. I was a head wrestling coach for 6 years at Warsaw Community High School. And in that time period, we had a number of successes, including 3 conference championships, 3 sectionals, 3 regionals, a semi-state championship, finished in the top 10 in the state in 3 out of the 6 years. Now, the reason I'm telling you all of this is because I think that these qualifications and this resume does qualify me to be part of the City Council. I have been, in fact, a servant of the people for 36 years. It is my desire to continue on in that service in the seat of the City Council. In all these situations that I've talked to you about, the big theme in my whole existence as a public servant has been team. And I think that working together as a team with the City Council as well as the administration, as well as the citizens, which again, I've had ample experience in doing this, that we can work to build a better Warsaw and also to put Warsaw, really my community, first. And that's the theme of my whole campaign. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baumgartner. That was really awesome because I neglected to tell you, you all had 2 minutes to introduce yourselves, and you were right on 2 minutes, so great job. Yeah. Okay, Patrick Loebs.
Is it all right if I adjust this microphone a bit? Help yourself. All right. Well, thank you all for coming. My name is Patrick Loebs, and I am a at-large candidate for City Council as well. Admittedly, the first thing you probably should know about me is I am not a Warsaw native. I was raised in Minnesota originally and chose Warsaw primarily for the opportunities that arrive here. I was born and raised in Minnesota and moved here a couple of years ago to teach at Grace College. I'm a professor of communication and have my PhD from the University of Memphis in Memphis, Tennessee. And my interest in research and the teaching relies primarily in the argumentation, persuasion, political rhetoric, and just, what would we say, community activism portion of education. My wife and I have 2 children, or actually 1.95, as she is due sometime in the next 7 days, with our second. And as I said, I'm not a Warsaw native, but I applied for jobs all over the country, and I knew when I set sights on Warsaw that this would be home for the rest of my life. It's a wonderful community, and you should all be very proud to call it home. As I said, I teach primarily in the political rhetoric and community activism part of teaching, and one of the things I really strive to do is make my classrooms a forum for not only open discussion, but also community participation. I assign my students to businesses, to organizations, to schools in the community, and let them go and work with the ultimate ideal, hopefully, of elevating the community to a brand new level of engagement and interaction. These are traits that I hope to bring to the City Council: the outreach, the community engagement, as well as just making the city better overall. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Connie Fribley.
Good evening. I'm Connie Fribley, and I am a wife and a mother and a grandmother. And for the last 30 years, I've helped families take care of their financial future through insurance planning. And the last 27 years, I've worked as a recruiter and a trainer for approximately 300 insurance agents across the United States. And I'm hoping to bring my background of financial information and budget management and people management to the position of City Council at large. I am, too, a recent transplant to Warsaw. I moved here 7 years ago and married my husband, Fred, 6 years ago. And I've really enjoyed all the opportunities that Warsaw has offered, but because of traveling with my position, I haven't got to enjoy them as much as I would like to. And that's what I'm hoping this position will offer me, the opportunity to bring those talents and serve the city of Warsaw, but also gain more knowledge about everything that's available in this wonderful community. Thank you.
Jürgen Voss.
Hi, and thank you for coming. I've been in Warsaw since 1977, and I'm married. My wife Betsy. I have 2 children that went through Warsaw schools and really appreciated everything that they did for my children. My wife and I own the Open Air Garden Center on Lake Street. I'm a graduate of Indiana University with a degree in business management, and I had minors in marketing and real estate and a few others. I have served on the school board when we built the high school and the 2 elementaries and the Civic building. And I really believe that we have to build for our kids. That's our future. And yes, it does raise taxes, but as long as that money's spent here in Warsaw, I don't really have a problem with that. We have to provide for our kids. I'm a member of the Warsaw Breakfast Optimist Club. I've been a past president and lieutenant governor. And my family is very active in the Lake City Skiers. I've been a real estate agent since 1986, and I've been a principal broker for several companies. Basically, I'm a fiscal conservative, and I'm a political conservative. My goal would be to ensure that your hard-earned tax dollars are spent wisely without cutting necessary services. And I think that's very important. We have to take care of the roads, the police department, the library, and the schools. But we want to keep that as economical as we can so people can afford to continue to live here. As far as economic growth and development, I'm for working with all the current businesses and industries to help them be successful. And we have to attract new businesses for those people that can't work in the orthopedic industry. As far as quality of life goes, I'm proud to be a Warsaw resident, and I'm grateful for the quality of life that we're all blessed with. My goal as a city council member would be to ensure that we can all continue to be proud of our city, safely and affordably raise our families here. Thank you very much.
Jack Wilhite.
Hi, I'm Jack Wilhite. I want to first thank the Chamber for sponsoring the event tonight, the moderator, Gary Gerard, and you, the citizens of Warsaw, for coming out tonight. I'm seeking the seat of council at large to give back to the community that has given so much to me. Having grown up in Warsaw from an early age, I attended and graduated from the Warsaw school system. I am currently a manufacturing engineer for Biomet, my employer since 1978. Locally, I've been a member, deacon, and elder of First Christian Church. I've been involved in the Boy Scouts of America since 1985. Politically, I've been a precinct committeeman for the local GOP. I serve on the Indiana GOP 3rd District Finance Committee, and I am in my first appointed term to the Warsaw City Board of Zoning Appeals. The federal and state governments get a lot of attention by the media. However, I believe it can be argued that local government has the potential to have a greater impact on its citizens. One wise politician advised me that people care most about what happens within 500 feet of their front door. As I look back over the past 3 years, I find this to be true. As hot topics were signs, chickens, and fences. However, as council members, we cannot be limited to just those topics. The city's businesses extends way beyond those topics. Job-creating businesses, local infrastructure, services, and safety are all topics that must be addressed as well. Excuse me. That is why a little over 3 years ago I began attending city council meetings. At first my friends and I were looked at a little bit suspiciously, like, what do you want? That's because I don't think they had many people show up to their meetings. The council didn't know what to think. They were sure we had an agenda. The agenda was we just wanted to see what was going on. After 6 months, the ice was broke, and we could comfortably speak to the council members as friends, collectively united in our desire for good government. The reason I did this is because I've always believed that if you feel something has value, you should contribute. Be it in your church, a service club, your local government, you should contribute. I've tried to model this for my sons, my daughter, and my grandchildren. Now comes a time in my life when I have time to contribute to local government. The council has seen fit to appoint me to the Board of Zoning Appeals as a position I've held for the past 2.5 years, but I'd like to do more. I believe my background, beliefs, and talents position me to be the best candidate for your next council at large. Thank you.
Cindy Dobbins.
Good evening, and thanks so much for coming out this evening. As Gary said, my name is Cindy Dobbins, and I am currently serving on the Warsaw City Council as the at-large representative, or one of the two. And I have been involved with community service most of my life. I graduated from Warsaw Community High School, received a BS from Ball State University, and a master's degree from Purdue University. I taught school at the high school and college level for about 6 years, and then answered the call at Multi-Township Emergency Medical Service back in 1977. I was the second employee hired by the organization, so I got in on the ground floor. I was hired to set up their business and billing office, and it certainly was a tremendous career for almost 30 years. After a couple of years, I was appointed the managing director of the organization, and in later years served as the chief financial officer. And I met a lot of wonderful people in the community and really felt that it was a great calling for me. After leaving the EMS, I did a stint as the executive director of the Warsaw Community Development Corporation. And again, that was an organization dedicated to ensuring that we keep our downtown vital, vibrant, and economically stable. And during that time period, I had owned a building in downtown Warsaw since 1999, and I decided to put my money where my mouth is and develop a downtown business myself. And so I currently own and operate Buffalo Street Emporium and the Next Chapter bookstore in downtown Warsaw, and I've been in business there for 5 years. Certainly been a challenge through some of our economic times, but it's also been a wonderful opportunity to interface with other downtown merchants and kind of be a champion for them. A couple of the activities that I've worked on over the years that I'm especially proud of include founding the first car seat safety program in Kosciuszko County, which later morphed into a program that was operated by the Kosciuszko County Safe Kids. Not as involved as I used to be, but I still serve as the treasurer for the organization. I was a domestic violence victims advocate for about 10 years when we had a volunteer program in place. And again, I felt it a real privilege to serve in that capacity. One of the organizations I'm currently involved with is the Salvation Army, and I serve on their board of directors, have been on that board for 3 or 4 years now. So hopefully you can see that I kind of have a pattern of community service, and I feel that serving on the council has just been a natural extension of that community service, and I would love to be able to serve another 4 years to help with some of the initiatives that we now have in place. Thank you.
Justin Reisner.
Oh, man. Hello, I'm Justin Reisner, candidate for Warsaw City Council at large. The reason I ran is because I've had my hands in, I think, every trade you can possibly think of. I've been in trailer factories for going on 13 years. I've framed houses, I've poured concrete, I've roofed, I've landscaped. I've been in a licensed asbestos abatement remover. I am the average man that I want to represent. I think that this government, I used to believe that we were a conservative community, and the more that I go to city council meetings, I see that all of our money is being spent towards progressivism, forced growth of corporate Warsaw. In order to have that, we are going to have to, as individuals, lose rights and lose freedoms. I'm not for that, and anybody I have talked to has been against it, but they don't see me representing the 100 people that I talk to that don't like the plans that are going on. They see me as the one individual. If you elect me, I can be the voice of the whole community and the vote of the whole community. I think that's about it. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have two candidates for clerk treasurer. First is Larry Ladd.
Thank you. I've grown up in the Warsaw area. In fact, graduated from this very school. So that tells you how many years ago that's been. I graduated with Michael Klondaris. I spent my time in the classroom. Mike spent his time in the principal's office. Sorry, Mike. As I said, I was born and raised in Warsaw, as was my parents, as were my children, and were my grandchildren. And I have another grandchild that will be born here soon, Warsaw too. Was taught at a very early age from my parents that you should serve the community in which you live. My great-grandfather was a county commissioner. His name is on the county farm, the old county farm out on what used to be the county farm home. And my father, John, who has since passed away, was a volunteer fireman for some 30 years. Little league coach, was in the old civil defense, which is the equivalent now of Homeland Security. Some of you may know me better as the county coroner. I served Kosciuszko County for 8 years, currently serve as the chief deputy coroner, and been involved in that for 25 years. I graduated from Western New Mexico University in 1975 with a degree in secondary education. One of my chief areas of study was economics, and I received my teaching license from the state of Indiana in 1976. My career path took me a different direction. In 1975, after leaving school, I hired on as the operations manager of the Yogi Bear's Jellystone Park over at Pierceton. Now, you may not think, if some of you that you may not be familiar with that, the Jellystone Park at Pierceton is the largest camp resort in the entire nation. We have an annual budget of $1.7 million. I've been the chief, the senior financial officer since 1988. And I think one of the assets I bring to the city as the operational manager is we operate similar, just like the city does. We maintain over 10 miles of roads. We supply our own fresh water. We have our own wastewater treatment plant. And we own and operate and maintain our electrical distribution system. At any one time on a holiday weekend, we have between 5,000 and 7,000 people that are visiting. So I'm familiar, and I think I can be a great asset, not only a great asset, but a partner to our mayor, a partner to our council, and the department heads that operate this city. And it would be a privilege and an honor to do that. And I ask for your support. Thank you.
Our other clerk treasurer candidate is Lynn Christianson, the incumbent.
Good evening, and thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you, Chamber of Commerce, for hosting this event. My name is Lynn Christianson, and I am the incumbent candidate for clerk treasurer for the city of Warsaw. I'm a lifelong Warsaw resident with organizational, small business, and policy experience. In March 2010, the local Republican caucus appointed me to the position of clerk treasurer after the previous clerk treasurer retired midterm. I was reelected to the position in 2011. Committed to the community and dedicated to progress is my campaign slogan. This sums up the perspective I bring each day to the office. Through fiscal responsibility, ethical practices, and transparency in daily operations, I am leading the office of Clerk Treasurer on a pathway to success. The Clerk Treasurer's office manages a city budget of just under $33 million. I oversee the office staff, the City of Warsaw accounts payable and receivable, payroll for all city employees, contracts and grants, and reconciliation of bank accounts, to name a few. Prior to holding the Clerk Treasurer position, I worked 26 years at the Warsaw Police Department. My parents owned and operated a small business for many years. From them, I learned a strong work ethic, dedication, solid customer service skills, and how to work with people from all walks of life. Because I have lived in Warsaw my entire life, I have built solid relationships with colleagues, business people, and the community at large. As an adult, I completed my Bachelor of Science degree in Organizational Leadership from Goshen College. I pursued this course of study to be able to move myself into a position of greater responsibility and public service. Juggling the responsibilities of being a mother, employed full-time, and continuing my education part-time taught me how to manage multiple priorities, multitask, and to meet deadlines. Using my common sense, work ethic, integrity, and servant leadership daily in my position, I serve the citizens of Warsaw by upholding fiscal responsibility, giving the public access to information that is allowed to them by law, and daily maintaining and preserving city records. Since being appointed to the position, I have led the transition to a new computer financial software. This was a complex change that required much attention to detail. This voluntary initiative has enabled the Clerk Treasurer's Office to remain current with the State Board of Accounts and Department of Local Government finance requirements for all reporting required by law. Also, updating the financial software has led to greater efficiency, thereby saving tax dollars. Understanding the role of accounting principles and practices is necessary for success in this position. I participate in continuing education courses through the Indiana League of Municipal Clerks and Treasurers and Indiana Association of Cities and Towns. I have been designated an Indiana accredited municipal clerk and am working toward my certified municipal clerk status. Laws and code are continually changing, and I apply accounting principles and practices in accordance with the State Board of Accounts and Department of Local Government Finance procedures and regulations. My continuance as Clerk Treasurer will ensure smooth office operations with no downtime for having to learn all relevant laws, regulations, and practices. Serving the community in this position has been very rewarding, enjoyable, and fulfilling for me. With your support and vote, I look forward to continuing to serve as Clerk Treasurer for the City of Warsaw. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to the questions now for our candidates. Just want to note for the record here that we have 7 candidates for 2 at-large seats. So 2 of these 7 will be moving on to the general election. Obviously, one of our clerk treasurer candidates will be moving on. So, are you guys okay with holding a microphone instead of walking up and back and forth? I'll just walk over there and hand you the mic. Would that be okay? They tell me that some of that squeakiness you hear in the microphone is your cell phone. If you make a call, it kind of picks that up. So just thought I'd pass that along. See if I got enough hands here. Okay, our first question for the city council candidates. Some of you touched on this in your introduction, but you can just hit the high points here. You'll each have 2 minutes. What qualifies you to serve the residents of Warsaw on the city council?
Well, you want me to go ahead and take it? Sure. Gary, I want to clarify one thing here. I am the lone Democrat, so I am not in a primary fight here. These guys are here to get bloody, not me. That'll happen after May 5th. Qualifications, as I mentioned before, I have served as a public servant 36 years in public schools. I serve also on the City Planning Commission with the last several years, which has opened my eyes to a number of things, alluded to the great chicken debate, as well as the other issues of the signage and things of that nature. All of these things, we may, kind of shrug them off, but it's important that every guy gets to be heard. That's part of the process. That's one of the reasons why I'm running also as a Democrat. So it's important that these people do get to be heard, And it's been my job as being part of the City Planning Commission to hear these things and to give these people the voice and then to pass it on once we discuss it amongst ourselves. Again, working as a team on the City Planning Commission here to make the best possible decisions that we then pass on to the City Council. So it would be, again, my honor and my pleasure to be able to work with the other City Council members and hear the voice of all the people within the town to see what their opinions are there and then get together and make the best possible decision we can for the people of Warsaw.
Mr. Loeb, what qualifies you to serve the residents of Warsaw and the City Council?
That's an excellent question. I think there's two ways to answer this. The first being, well, I'm a Warsaw citizen, so therefore I'm qualified to serve, right? But I think really what you're getting at is what have I done that allows me to serve? And the question of that is much more intangible. I mean, I care very much about the success of this community because I've only lived here a couple of years, but I have children who are going to go through the Warsaw School District, who will graduate and will likely attend Grace College, will be a part of this community for the next 25 years. That's forthcoming. So I want this community to thrive. I want it to prosper. I want them to come back and exist and participate and contribute to this community. So in a sense, I'm looking forward to making it better for them. Like David mentioned, I care very much about that the average citizen be heard. I think it's important that in a growing community like this, we make sure that all ideas, no matter how silly they may initially seem, are given fair treatment, are not dismissed as ludicrous, and are part of the political process. And I think that is something that is on occasion lacking, and something that I would certainly like to bring as a representative for all of the citizens.
Okay, Connie Fribley, what qualifies you to serve the residents on the City Council?
Well, one of the main reasons is my firm belief is that you need to give where you live. My background is in insurance and finance. I've had 30 years of working with individual customers, working at a national training level with individuals all across the United States. And so I have that background in finance. I have the background in budgeting. I have the background in management. But I'm retiring from that position, and I have time. I have time to serve the city of Warsaw, and I have time to listen to the constituents in the city and bring those issues up before the council meetings. Excuse me.
Jurgen, you know the question.
I do. And I'd just like to say that I understand the process. As a school board member, I understood that you don't make a difference by yourself. You have to work as a team. And I'm very proud of this city council and the mayor. I don't have any criticisms. I'm not running because I'm against anything. I'm not running because I'm passionate about changing something. But with my school board experience, I learned that if we work as a team, we can do good for the community. And I think that's very important. School board, I think, has a bigger budget than the city. And we had to make some very hard decisions. And I also recognize that when the city or the school board makes a decision, it can possibly hurt some people. So you have to balance that. You have to get input from all the members. And I think it's very important that before any votes are taken, that you hear the voice of the citizens and you all get together and make the best decision for the citizens of Warsaw. I mentioned I have an education in business management. I think that's very important. I graduated in 3 years and had a double major and 4 minors. Also attended Valparaiso University. And you know, that just adds to the fact that I have a multiple experience in different areas. Going from a small Christian school to a big Indiana university was a big change. As far as membership goes, I've been president of the Optimist Club, which is a great organization here in Warsaw. I was president of the JCs. Again, that's teamwork, working together to accomplish the good for the citizens of your community. Been a real estate agent, worked with hundreds and hundreds of people to get them their houses bought. And you know, that's important. You learn from that, and it just gives me more experience in order to serve you well. And I think I do have the experience from my business. running a business is a challenge at all kinds of times. So I would appreciate your support, and my goal is to serve all of you well.
Go ahead. Jack Wilhite. What qualifies you?
May I stand up?
You do whatever you want.
Sitting long enough. What qualifies me? Well, you know, I've been an area resident for over 50 years. I've seen Warsaw grow. I know what makes it tick. I've been with many of you working, you know, in politics, working in the community. I've been, like I said before, a Boy Scout leader, and I've always felt that when you believe in something, you really ought to contribute. As an employee of Biomet, I rose up through the ranks, starting on the shop floor in maintenance. I became a CNC programmer, moved on to process engineering, and now manufacturing engineering. In those roles, I was given many projects that had to be taken care of. The last few years, I've been in charge of a few projects that really we had to move a lot of equipment. We had to purchase a lot of equipment, and so I had to take care of the amount of money that was set aside for that equipment. They were multi-million-dollar projects. I had to deal with a lot of different people, different departments, each with their own agenda. Something that, you know, you have to learn how to be able to deal with people. And that was one of the things that I learned, I think, most in my time working through Biomet. About 5-6 years ago, maybe 7. Well, in that case, I'll save it for later. Thank you.
As I mentioned before, I worked for Multi-Township EMS for 30 years, and I have a strong financial background. During my tenure there, I was responsible for constructing the budget every year, responsible for all the payables and receivables. And even though the budget there was not as large as the city budget, it was still a few $1 million a year. And very proud of the fact that I was able to keep the organization in the black when I was there. Also, as a small business owner, I understand some of the challenges facing small businesses, and also the customer service that's required to keep a small independent business afloat. So I believe that both for my years with Multi-Township and as a small business owner, I have a strong sense of customer service, and I believe that I can bring that to the city, particularly when I interact with the constituents within the city when there are different problems and different issues. Also, many of the activities and committees that I've served on over the years, I think, have really kept me in touch with the community and the people in the community, the temperament of the community, and so forth, and I feel has given me a good basis, again, for serving the citizens of Warsaw.
I think that most of what city council's job is to be a voice of the community. If you talk to anybody that knows me, I have a very loud voice. I am not afraid to speak my opinions. I can't be bought, and I won't back down. I will listen to the community, and I will speak for them, and my vote will always be for the community, and like I said, not for corporate Warsaw. I've lived paycheck to paycheck my whole life. I've had my hands, like I said, in every trade, so I know what it's like to be down there and be those people that think that one man can't make a difference. I think that my voice, I guess, is my biggest qualification. Thank you.
Same one. Well, what qualifies anyone up here is really first and foremost to be a concerned citizen of Warsaw, and that desire to see Warsaw grow and prosper. As I said in my opening statement, I was taught early on that you should serve the community in which you live, and I have served as your county coroner for 8 years. I think my background in my career gives me that unique perspective, as I mentioned, would give me that perspective working well with our department heads, our street department, our police department and fire department, working with the mayor, the council. I really have a desire and passion to see this community grow. I have two granddaughters and the third on the way, and I want to see them, this community prosper as it did for me, because Warsaw's a great community and we just need to keep it that way.
As I also mentioned in my opening statement, that I was appointed during the Republican caucus in 2010. There was 2 other candidates, and there was 3 tie votes, and the Republican chair actually had to break the vote and voted for me. And then I got elected back in 2011 for my second term. I am qualified because I have received my Indiana accredited municipal clerk status, and I am working towards my certified municipal clerk status. I love to serve. Not only have I served through the Warsaw Police Department for 26 years, I've served in this position. I've gone on several mission trips with my church. I have worked on several local projects. And I just think that to bring this community forward, we need to keep progressing, and anything I can do to help with that, I will.
Okay, the second question, we'll start with Mr. Loeb. What is the most important issue the City Council should be currently addressing?
I believe the largest issue that the City Council should be addressing is one that I think is going to be forthcoming. That is simply the path that the city will take. I believe that we are, in a sense, at a crossroads. Warsaw is a very kind of anomaly in the larger scope of what cities are. It's this rather smallish city in northwestern Indiana or northeastern Indiana that has multinational, multi-billion-dollar companies at its doorstep. And that is something you just don't find. So I think some decisions need to be made. Are we going to do what we can to encourage those businesses to stay and draw other ones in? Or are we going to hold on to the Warsaw that did exist 50 years ago and have those businesses seek, or maybe the orthopedic companies will never leave. But what does that say about the other companies that we want to draw in? I represent a sort of a different perspective from, I think, most people up here, and that is I would call myself one of the younger, educated population that populates the city, or they're growing. And the orthopedic companies are drawing people in from all over the world. What do these individuals want? What would they like to see Warsaw be? How do we construct it in such a way so that we make it good for them, for their children, for their families? And I think that's the perspective that we need to take. And so I don't know what that looks like. I'm not privy to all the information that sitting city council members are, but I think that's the perspective we need to look at. What do we want to become? Not looking now or 5 years from now, but 20 years from now. What should Warsaw be, and how do we get to that point?
Okay, what's the most important issue the City Council should be currently addressing?
Well, of all of the issues that the council is currently addressing, probably for me it's pretty much the same, looking at the economic growth of the community and keeping that economic growth growing. As I said in my press release, I think it's very important for the City of Warsaw to maintain their AM Best ratings. That rating's very important for us to be able to borrow money at a good rate to be able to fund a lot of the projects that are on the slate and fund that economic growth. And I feel it's important to bring in new jobs outside of the orthopedic industry as well that are going to provide those above standard wages that the city of Warsaw needs for its constituents.
Boss, most important issue.
Well, for me, definitely, I would agree with what the other two candidates said. It's our growth. Where are we going? The city council has a lot of power to direct the growth of the city, but it's not just the growth. It's the direction that we take that growth into. With the growth of the orthopedic industries, Warsaw will change. We can't go back to the Warsaw in 1970. It just doesn't happen, and you wouldn't recognize it. You probably wouldn't want to go back to that. The Warsaw in 20 years will be much different, and it is up to the city council to help guide that path. And I think that's one of the most important things the city council has to do. I believe that the present city council and the mayor has done an excellent job, as well as the mayors going all the way back, of trying to figure out where are we going, what are we going to be. We're not always going to be a small city like some of our neighbors because we have that orthopedic input. But I also believe that we have to diversify our job opportunities. Not everybody that lives and works in Warsaw can work at an orthopedic company. Some are not qualified, so we have to look for other industries to come in here, and we have to do things we can attract. There are several companies that have moved in recently that are just unbelievable. I can't think of the name of the one, but it's part of Winona Corp. They do rims. They build new buildings. They provided jobs. They don't pay as much as the orthopedic industry, but they still provide opportunities for our citizens. Retailing is not going to cut it for people to try to survive anymore in our economy. $10 an hour, you can't afford anything. And rents in Warsaw are kind of high, so we have to be very careful not to make sure those rents raise and people just can't afford to live here anymore. We are a diverse community, and we have to provide for all the citizens, not just the engineers at the orthopedic companies. So as a city council member, I would be there to represent everybody, not just people at the top tier.
Jack Wilhite, most important issue facing the council.
Well, I think the most important issue facing the council is the economy of Warsaw. You know, we're kind of on the eve, not really, but kind of on the eve of this major merger that's going to be happening relatively soon. And there's a lot of people that are concerned about their jobs. There are things that the city can do that can help bring in jobs. You know, government does not make jobs. That's something that I think a lot of people, you know, it kind of goes over their head. They don't understand that. What makes jobs is business, and the city can do things that will bring these businesses, attract these businesses in. I think one of the things that the city is currently doing is going to help with that, and that is to help build the infrastructure that is really kind of old and antique, needs to be upgraded. There's an exciting project coming to fruition, I believe, on North Buffalo. That's going to be a real neat thing that's going to happen that I think is going to help attract business types. You know, what can we do that will help the leadership of each of these major corporations want to live within Warsaw? Let's get them tied into the community somehow. You know, it's easy for them to sit in another city, and then you just become a number. Well, if we can draw them in to the community, get them to take up residence here, you know, that's going to help build the city as well. That's what I think is most important, bring in business.
Well, I hate to sound like a broken record, but I have to concur with those that have gone before me that economic development is really important for our livelihood. We have depended a great deal upon the orthopedic industry, but we can't put all of our eggs in one basket, so I believe that we need to branch out. Years ago, we had a lot of different companies, Jomac, Bluebell, Playtime Products, and so forth, and those companies have gone away. I think with the Certified Technology Park that we are working on now and the shell building that we are putting up, that's going to maybe provide some opportunities for some companies to want to step into this area, because we are going to have buildings available, and I think as quickly as that building is filled, we will probably go on to another one. In addition to the large businesses, I think we need to nurture some of our small businesses. We have some nice retail businesses downtown. We also have some other locally owned businesses throughout the community, and we need to encourage them and support them as much as we can. The North Buffalo Street corridor, I think, is going to be a big one, because we have a lot of folks that are working in the community now that really want to live in or near downtown Warsaw. And I'm certainly hoping that that will help encourage particularly some of the young 30-somethings and so forth to want to stay in our community, because we will be providing them with some of the amenities that they're looking for.
I think one of the most important issues for me was the mayor's comprehensive plan for the sustainable growth of Warsaw over the next 20 years. Everybody keeps talking about growth and Warsaw's change. I understand that we're going to grow. It's inevitable. Nothing we can do is going to stop us from growing. But to pass a plan that forces the change of Warsaw to comply with the growth that they want to run a fast rail train into Warsaw to get more people here from Chicago, but then they want to say it'll create jobs for us by getting us out of town. Let's bring the jobs here so we don't need a fast rail train to get us out of town to go to work. The force change is one of the biggest issues. I think that people are moving here because they already are attracted to what Warsaw has to offer. Instead of spending the money on the big growth, let's spend the money on fixing and preserving, conserving what already makes Warsaw a great community.
Dave Baumgartner, biggest issue, most important issue facing the City Council.
I think infrastructure is number one. I really do, and the reason for that is because all of the growth and the change that we do want to see happen will be based upon that infrastructure. It was interesting, the comprehensive plan that we read before we worked on the current one was back in the late 1990s. And all of a sudden, you know, they're building buildings, they're doing this plan and that plan, and then all of a sudden along comes fiber optics. So we see a change in fiber optics and how people communicate and everything else. No one back in the 1990s, at least, you know, general knowledge at that time wasn't, that is the direction we're going to go. There were some that were, which brings me to the next point. It's very important that we become educated as much as we possibly can on what are the trends. And I know Joe does a real good job of this, of getting out and seeing other communities in the Midwest, and seeing what is it that you guys are doing, what is the planning, going to the experts and the people that are in the know and saying what is the best possible solution that we can follow in order to help our city grow. But again, I really feel that it's based on the infrastructure so that the rest of the community can grow. And I do support the progressive ideas of the fast trains and things of this nature, because that's what's going to attract people. And again, building good schools is another thing that's going to attract people.
Okay, third question. This goes first to Connie Fribley. Quality of life enhancements to communities, parks, bicycle paths, free Wi-Fi, things like that, are touted as tools for attracting a talented workforce so we can grow, as you've all said is important. Do you support this concept? And if so, how would you go about funding the addition of these amenities? They cost money, so how would you fund them?
Well, as a more recent transplant to Warsaw, it was quite an enjoyment to be able to enjoy the parks and the lakes in the city. The fact that that you have the different programs at the parks that are available free of charge to the community is just a wonderful opportunity. And the new bike trails and the plans to continue that, you know, to be able to continue to attract younger, upward mobile people, they want to have alternate modes of transportation other than by car. They want to be able to have the bike trails and the things, not only for enjoyment, but to get around every day. So funding it, that's going to be the big issue, the budgetary issue, and it's going to have to be involved in the budget, and it's a good question.
Okay, there you go. So, bike paths, free Wi-Fi, parks, tools for attracting a talented workforce. Do you support that as a concept, and how would you fund it?
Well, I certainly support it as a concept. I mean, we all like free things, and this city has done an incredible job. Free concerts in the park. We have incredible parks. We have all kinds of opportunities for entertainment through the school corporation. We have the wagon wheel. Not everything that we do is free. Winona Lake's going to have a new park that's going to be really neat. It wasn't cheap, but it was done through sponsorships. It was done through donations. And while I'm in favor of all those free things and it enhances our community, I certainly wouldn't be against it. I also know that when you give something to someone for nothing, it costs somebody else money. Whether it's in increased taxes or, it's a penalty on somebody. So, yes, I'm progressive. I'm conservative, but I'm progressive as far as growth and having enhanced facilities and fixtures and all those cream puff things that I like to call them. But I think at the end, the bottom line is, who's going to pay for it? Yes, if it's not terribly expensive, I'm not opposed to taxes going up a little bit, but if you can work within the budget like our park department does, our cemetery board does, that's great. If you can add more services without raising taxes, I'm all for that. And I think you'd have to look at each individual item. We can give away all kinds of things if we raise our taxes or double them or triple them, but that's not realistic. So I think there's a balance that has to be struck. And that's why the city council is a team. It's a team effort between the mayor and the city council. So yes, I'm in favor of all those things, but I am concerned about how they're funded. And I think that with the industries we have in our community, they've been very generous. Look at all the things Dane Miller did for Warsaw and Winona Lake, and I think we need to actively pursue those kinds of contributions. The Manahan Center is another one. And that can always benefit Warsaw. So I would say, yes, I would be in favor of providing as much as we can in the budget or slightly raising the budgets. But let's go for corporate sponsorships and other ways to fund that. Let's be creative. Let's write grants and do things like that, like the pathway for the bikes. The path behind the hospital was an excellent example. So I'm in favor, but I don't want to penalize people with incredibly higher taxes. Thank you.
Jack Wilhite, do you have a good grasp on the question? You in favor of the concept of using these things as tools for attracting a talented workforce, parks, etc.? If you're in favor of that, how would you fund it?
I think everybody has said, there is no free lunch. Somehow it's got to be paid for. And yet, it's these things that also attract the talent that we need that help with the growth. It's kind of a cycle. You can't do everything at once. You do it a little bit at a time. You pull some people in. You grow the economy. You get more tax revenue because you got more people within the economy. And as long as you can keep that train rolling in that direction, then you can provide those things. Not just provide those things, but you can provide a good life. As we've all been talking about the economy, providing good jobs, that does more than just provide the niceties. That provides safety. That provides for your children, that provides a good education. These are things that you've got to keep rolling in that direction. Now, it seems like the state's working against us when it comes to, for instance, the TIF districts that are going to end up going away in the future for everybody except for Indianapolis, that is. And that was a real good way to provide some of these things. That's how we got it Central Park or Center Park. That's how we're doing some of the things that we're doing. We're going to have to get creative, and that's basically it. We're going to have to get creative.
I think the amenities are very important, particularly to some of the younger people in the community. They are looking for bike paths, they are looking for different activities and so forth in the parks, particularly for their children. It's also important maybe in attracting people from outside of the community, because I know I do get people into my shop that, you know, have come to Warsaw for a Saturday to bicycle, to go from Winona Lake to Warsaw, and those people spend money, they buy lunch, they pick up a few items and everything. So I think it can also be a tool by which we can also stimulate some small business in the area. As far as paying for it, I think the city has done a very good job so far of receiving, you know, grants, donations, and so forth to help do some of the things that we have done. But I don't know, I think as Jack made the comment, there's no free lunch. I'm not so sure that down the road we may not have to charge something for some of the activities, particularly, I know one wants to have to charge for concerts in the park, but maybe there's a nominal fee per family or per person or something like that. So I guess I wouldn't rule out the fact that we may have to eventually instill some charges on some of these things. Obviously, the bike pass, you're not going to be able to probably monitor that, but I would like to see us use as much as we can in the way of donations and sponsorships. That still doesn't address maintenance, so maintenance is always going to be an issue that we're going to have to build into the budget.
Just in our parks and
Free Wi-Fi, bike pass.
those things legitimate tools to attract business? If you agree they are, how would you fund them?
I think basically I don't want to hear the word free until our taxes stop getting raised. You know, was a year and a half, 2 years ago, the county passed a new wheel tax on us, and now the state is talking about having to raise gas prices and pass a registration fee or registration tax on us because we can't afford to fix the roads. I scratch my head every night trying to figure out how the county is over budget and how the state is over budget, but yet the city of Warsaw has so much money for this growth. Basically I can't afford, when you live paycheck to paycheck, you can't afford another penny. Every penny matters. And with the wheel tax, passing the wheel tax, that's 1 week's worth of groceries for me and my family, my household. We can't afford that. So until we fix our roads and we get our city and our county back on budget, the word free is pretty much in one ear and out the other to me.
Dave Baumgartner, you know the question.
There's no question that those things are certainly important to attracting people. The 800-pound gorilla in the room is, you know, of course, how do we pay for them? And there's several people have alluded to things that can be done. We don't want to see charging for any of these types of things, but it is feasible to think and to just from practical reasoning with folks, if you want these kind of things, then they are going to have to be paid for one way or the other. Now, is that going to come in the form of bicycle permits? Is that going to come in the form of charging at the concert? Is it going to come in the form of raising taxes to some degree? And when those hard questions have to be faced, that's when the city council does have to step in, get the opinions of the people, because ultimately the people are going to make that decision, if that's important to you. Is it important to you to have the free Wi-Fi, to have the great bike paths, and to have the nice schools? If it is, we are, as a team, collectively going to have to figure out how we're going to pay for it. And there are numerous paths that can be done. It's not only through taxation. There are grants that are available. And again, our city our city government has done a good job, I think, of seeking out those grants and finding ways, as well as our corporate structure here, have done incredible things to provide for us as we have them. And our job as city council members are going to have to be to sort that out and get the voice of the people, the majority of the people, and find out how they want to answer that question.
I'm good. All right, I'm going to stand up for this. This excites me. The short answer is absolutely. Now, I will say that not all of these, I think, are as good of ideas as some of them. I love the idea of bike paths. I think that the parks and lakes of the area cannot be underestimated in importance. They are true gems of this area. But what we have to understand is really two sort of answers to this. The first being we have to understand the orthopedic companies are terribly important to this community. According to OrthoWorks, I was looking at their website today, 13,000 jobs in this county are directly or indirectly dependent on the orthopedic companies. It's something like 45% of the entire workforce because of these companies. We need to do things to draw employees in and to make this a more hospitable place for them. Everyone spoke of the idea of no free lunch, and I would agree with that completely. And anyone who runs a business knows that it costs money to make money. If we are going to make this a more hospitable place to that workforce, it will require some sort of investments in some of these things. But perhaps the better answer is because of the orthopedic companies and some of the larger corporations in town, we have a golden opportunity. Parks, Wi-Fi, bicycle paths, all these things, they want them as badly as we do. These things are mutually beneficial to not only us, but to the companies themselves. I mean, look at the village in Winona. Look what someone with a desire, the funding, the ability, look what they can do. What should Warsaw do along those same lines to get businesses in, to create a space for small business? These are golden opportunities. And we have to recognize that it's not the city versus these companies. Let's partner with them. Let's provide some incentive to give them an opportunity to help invest in our community because it serves their purposes as well.
Okay, we're going to switch to our clerk-treasurer candidates. Oh, I didn't forget you. She gets to answer first this time. What innovations do you propose to bring to the clerk-treasurer's office, if any?
What innovations?
What innovations?
Good question. Right now, we are busting at the seams, so to speak, of our records that we have to retain permanently. And one of the things I'm considering is trying to get those stored on some kind of medium. The problem is that the state of Indiana only recognizes microfilm. So to do that, there's going to be some cost associated with that. As far as other innovations, those pretty much go by what would be the state might mandate or what technology might come along as it progresses. So that would be about my answer.
All right, thanks. Larry, what innovations, if any, could you bring to the clerk-treasurer's office?
Well, it's a little hard to answer not being involved in the day-to-day operation of the clerk-treasurers at this point. I think the most important thing is to show confidence to our citizens that we are very transparent. And we need to not only welcome our citizens to come in. We have a beautiful city hall. And we need to not only welcome people, we need to encourage people to come in and visit with us and prove to them and see the records and see the financial data. I think that goes a long way into assuring people that their money is spent in a responsible fashion. Clerk Treasurer's office is a little bit different in the fact that we don't come up with the policy. Lynn is correct in that we have to follow the guidelines and the rules and the statute of the state, the Board of Accounts, and what the council dictates. I've attended quite a few of the council meetings, and it's a shame, just like tonight, this auditorium ought to be filled. And I will do my very best to encourage people to come in, get involved, not just when there's a controversial issue, but all the time. I think people would have a lot more confidence in their government if they see the council, what the council is doing. Sometimes I see there and my heart goes out to them because I know they're really toying with those decisions. And if I've got a couple of minutes here, do I? I'm going to add something. The last council meeting, the improvements for the Buffalo Street project was approved, and that's going to start happening. That's where some of our additional income and our revenues are going to come from. So funding these other projects, we're going to see commercial development down there. We're going to see people put new housing up, and that's going to help our tax base immensely.
Okay, switching back to our city council candidates. Mr. Voss, you get this question first. Oh, maybe I'll tell you what the question is. That might be helpful. When considering new regulations as a councilman, how will you balance rights of individuals with the good of the community?
You know, that's an interesting question, and I think I mentioned this before. No matter what you do as a council, everything you vote for, especially with regulations, you help some people and you hurt some people. You have to have a heart. You have to balance that. The community good is good, and I think no matter what regulation you have, and I'm not thinking of any specifically, but the common good has to be taken into consideration. I think if you hold this mic away, it doesn't squeak. But anyway, I think that the main thing is you have to weigh the benefits from the consequences. Regulations are necessary to keep order, and I know the city is considering some now, and I agree with them. But I think they have to have heart. They have to take in consideration unique circumstances. But I think if you have a problem with something, it is up to the city council to fix it. And I totally agree with that. But I think it has to be done realistically and affordably. We can fine people all day long if they don't follow the regulations, but the main thing is if we can work with those people to resolve the conflict. And yes, I totally agree that there have to be regulations, and you know, we had the chicken ordinance came up. There's all kinds of other things that we're working on, but it is up to the council to keep order in the city, and so I would totally agree with that. But I always hesitate when we start a new regulation and a bunch of people get burned. And that is not always in the best interest of all the citizens. But as a council person, I would always bear in mind that everything we do is going to help some people and hurt some people. And I think that's all you can do as a representative of the whole city. And that would be my pledge, to represent everybody equally and fairly. Thank you.
How do you balance the rights of individuals versus the whole good of the community when you're considering a new regulation?
You know, I tend to try to err on the side of freedom as much as possible. Sometimes that does create some problems when it comes to safety, and those are issues that you have to balance out. Some people want to be regulated more than others. So I guess probably what it's going to boil down to a lot is trying to listen to the community, listen to the people within the community. You know, just how much regulation are you willing to take, and how much freedom are you willing to give up? That's pretty much where I'm going to stand.
Those decisions are often very, very difficult. I think probably what has helped me a great deal with some of them are some of the town hall type meetings that we have had. It's interesting to listen to both sides of a particular thing, the chickens, the fences, and so forth. And so that's one of the things I would really advocate for when we do have those types of issues, that we do have more town hall meetings. I know on the chicken issue I probably received close to 100 emails and phone calls, and it was really difficult to sort through all of those issues. Try to act in the best interest of most people, realizing, as others have said, that you are not always going to satisfy everyone. Try not to do any harm in the decisions that you're making so that they don't really impact anyone in a terribly negative fashion.
Hey, Justin, how do you weigh the right of the individual against the good of the community when you're considering a new regulation?
I'm sorry, I got to stretch out. This country, this state, this city needs to remember that the Constitution is the law of the land. We need people on the city council that will uphold the individual rights of the citizens of this community.
Okay, and the individual rights are considered in our system of checks and balances that our Constitution does provide for us. And I think that that's something that's important as a city council member, that we do go through that process and we do talk to our people and we do find out, what is the extent of the power. No one wants to be a dictator. No one wants to, rule over people's lives. We want to give the people as much possible freedom as we can, but we also must consider the benefit, the well-being of the entire community also when these questions do come up. And they're tough questions to answer. And again, as a city council member, you need to get out amongst the people, find out what the majority of the people really want to do. And in a number of cases, the majority can be clear into the 90 percentile that this is what we want to do. Well, then that's what we're going to have to do, is follow the will of the people and that large percentage of people there. It's unfortunate the other 5%, no, you aren't going to get what you want, but maybe there's going to be an issue come up the next time around that you're going to be part of that majority that is going to be part of the checks and balance system here to make sure that the things are given adequate hearing so that we can make the proper judgment that will benefit the most people.
Individual rights, how do you balance that?
I think the short answer is always default towards liberty and freedom of the people. Always. I believe that it's the city's responsibility to demonstrate why new policies or regulations are not burdensome on those rights. I think it is not the burden of the people to prove that somehow they're being infringed. The city needs to demonstrate that its policies are in fact good and do not infringe on those things. As I teach in my classes a lot, we talk about the importance of civic dialogue and the willingness of people to enter into a conversation with the idea that, hey, I might learn something about this process. I might, in fact, be wrong. We also talk about this term we call the tyranny of the vocal. Not everyone who shouts loudest should always win, because sometimes those people are wrong. And I think that what we really need is a conversation to admit and encourage as many people as possible to attend meetings and really base a decision on reason grounded in legitimate cause, not in hyperbolic claims or in misinformation. And I think that's really the burden of the council, to see through the shouts and get to the heart of the issue, but always default towards liberty and freedom of the people.
Well, it's very hard to please all of the people all the time. And with the city council, it's divided up into districts, and then there's 2 at-large positions. And those people on the council are charged with getting out and talking to their constituents in their district or the at-large position and finding out the vast majority of the wishes of those constituents. And then they're charged at bringing that information to the meeting and making a vote. So you do have the checks and balances because you have different opinions coming from the different regions and the balances of several people making those decisions. And it is very hard when someone is impacted negatively by an opinion that's going to be beneficial to the majority, but that's the checks and balance system that we live and work within.
Okay, that ends the questions for our city council candidates. I think you should give them a hand. It's difficult to talk in front of people and be questioned about these issues. So good job, you guys. We have yet one more question for our clerk treasurer candidates. And this one goes first to Larry Ladd. What is the greatest fiscal challenge facing our community, and how can the clerk treasurer's office help solve it?
Well, as I said earlier, we're different. We don't dictate policy or determine policy. We have to follow the statutory rules of the state, the Board of Accounts, and what the council determines. So as long as we follow those guidelines and those statutory regulations and do it in the full transparency, I think that's the job of the clerk treasurer's office. The first part of your question.
What's the greatest fiscal challenge facing the community?
Well, I think it's obviously maintaining the services for the city, but keeping taxes as reasonable as they possibly can be. And I think it goes back to what I said at the last session. The council and the city is taking steps now with the development of the Buffalo Street project. We're going to see commercial developments. We're going to see private development there that's going to raise the tax base, the assessed evaluation. We're going to see Market Street. It's somewhat of a mess now, but I can guarantee you when that project gets completed, you're going to see homeowners take real pride in where they live. You're going to see improvements. You're going to see redevelopment along that, and the tax base, again, will go up. So I think the city's headed in the right direction. It's a never-ending chore that our council and our mayor and our city department heads need to be very proud of the job they have done.
Okay, go ahead. What's the greatest fiscal challenge facing the community? How can the clerk treasurer's office help to solve it?
Well, I think the greatest fiscal challenge facing not only our community but every other community across Indiana is tax caps. And with that the tax being capped at a certain point for homeowners or business owners, we can only collect so much amount of money. Plus, the assessed valuation has lowered, but it's starting to go up a little bit. So between those two, you have to get the balance you need. With the tax caps going and less revenue, you have to balance the spending and how you can cut costs. One of the ways the city does it is several years ago we joined the IACT Medical Trust, and it helps keep our health insurance costs down. We're in a pool with other cities across the state, and between all the people, our rates aren't going up as high as what they probably had been had we still been self-insured or insured through another company. Another way to make sure that we get the revenue we need is to cut the spending we don't need, which is the hard balance, and you have to find different ways to do that. The mayor and I have talked about this a lot, how to cut the services or how to cut spending without cutting services and still running our city how it should be. Now, as far as what I can do in my office to help in other ways, last year I had a company come in and they audited our telephone bills and what we pay in billing, and they cut a lot of our overcharges out on that. And recently we did the same thing with our natural gas utilities. So between those two things, my little effort to save the city some money was by cutting thousands of dollars off of just our regular utilities. It's just things like that keep going on, and as things come available, then we will look at ways to cut cost while not cutting services.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's all the questions we had for the candidates. Again, give them a hand. I mean, it's a tough thing to take these kinds of questions. Were we gonna let the audience ask questions? No. Okay. Okay, I'll turn it back to Mark Dobson. Thanks for coming out tonight. Wish there would have been more of you. Tell all your friends and neighbors to get out and vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you very much. I was deficient in mentioning, by the way, that WIOE was streaming this tonight, so there are probably thousands and thousands of people sitting at home in front of their computer monitor tonight. So we didn't want to tell the candidates that to make them nervous. You may not have noticed because you were focused on the great job that these folks are doing, but all of the city council candidates who are running for office but unopposed have stayed this evening, as well as our mayor have stayed because they're interested in hearing from the folks. So I think a round of applause also for the elected officials who took a little extra time and stayed with us. A special note of thanks to Gary for a great job moderating. It's a very difficult job, and we all have our biases, and Gary's never come out when he moderates these events. How about a special hand for the Times Union and Gary Gerard? Two last announcements. Again, I want to thank our sponsors, and some of them may not be as familiar, and you may not realize but they're locally owned. Freedom Oil is locally owned. When you buy your fuel at your local Citgo station, that's Freedom Oil. A Good Oil Company is the BP on South Buffalo Street, also an Indiana-based corporation. CenturyLink, again, Oldies 101.1, and they also live streamed us tonight. And, of course, the Times Union make these things happen. A special round of applause for them. And I actually had two other things to mention. The school referendum is on the ballot in the primary. If you have friends who reside within the Warsaw Community School District but live outside of the city of Warsaw, they live in Winona Lake, they live in the county immediately adjacent, but they are in the district, they are eligible to vote during the primary. If they have any questions, have them contact the county clerk. But they are eligible to vote. Please encourage them to vote. The Warsaw Community Schools wants to hear all voices in this, and so please encourage them to vote as well. And the Kosciuszko Chamber has held third house sessions with our state legislators. We had one scheduled for tomorrow. The session is still in. The session is quite hot right now. None of the legislators are available. We're going to wrap up the session on May 22nd. And we anticipate all 5 of the Kosciuszko County delegation being here to wrap up and tell you what happened during the session. So, again, we thank you. Thanks to the candidates. You all did a fabulous job. We appreciate your time this evening. And there will be a little time left that you can engage with folks before we're going home. Thank you again.